And good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And of course, I didn't actually think to check whether or not the audio was working. So let's just double check. Yep, we are good. Mic volume, we are fine. I've got the auto ducking off. So hopefully I can just deal with the audio. So we are back finishing off Tuesday. I'm in two minds as to whether or not I'm going to go straight into Wednesday or not, because my understanding is that Thursday is supposed to be a day off, if that's to be believed. Oh, hang on. Let me readjust my mic. I'm worried I'm going to blow people's ears out, so warning. Big warning. Okay. I'm going to start by talking very quietly and see how that's panned out. Because I have no idea how, why, what, when, where, why it keeps doing that. All right, let's get the chatbot working. And then we will be good to go. Wednesday was a half a day and then Thursday off. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And so tomorrow for me, I'm wondering whether or not I should do the half day of Wednesday, because otherwise I'm not going to have anything to watch and stream on the way to and from work, which is really annoying, because I thought I'd be behind so that I could catch up on the public holiday for me that's on Monday. Babe, you're really fucking me around here. You realize that? So, Thursday catch up and rest day. Well, we'll see how it pans out. I'm sure I can find some other things to talk about and watch and whatever else, because I think, and they say you should never share your plans, but I think I have found an appropriate methodology for, when I say methodology, an appropriate procedure, shall we say, for me to be able to actually prepare some actual content. All right, hopefully that should be okay. All right, so let's do it to it, shall we, people? What's that? Is my radio on? My radio is on. Never mind. All right. Engage. Oh, and for anyone wondering,
we approach. Yes. Thank you, Your Honor.
My car bill came out at $1,800.
Correct. We've already pre-marked as exhibits for identification these studies, 2 studies. I may be incorrect in that. If so, I have studies. I'm going to show them to Mr. Yes, thank you. So we can just.
And they're not done with it. They said that I still need 4 new tires, and I've got about another 3 weeks left on my front right brake pad. So, you know, potentially another $1,500 on top of that. I can't wait to move.
Okay. If I can just have them go here. Okay, I've got them. These are them. If I could have marked for identification as one document, please.
Exhibit PPP for ID.
One more, Madam Court Reporter. Thank you.
And exhibit QQQ for ID.
I'd speed it up, but I really don't see any need.
Unless you would, when the court reporter's down.
Sure. Yes, Your Honor.
Which is what?
Exhibit PPP is the Munich, and exhibit QQQ is Pollock, and those are the lead author names. You're welcome. Yeah, I leave them with the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Russell, I have provided you with those two exhibits. I would ask you to just briefly take a look at them and let me know whether you recognize those as the articles that you were referencing before.
Yes.
Now let's start out with the Munich study. Is that exhibit PPP?
PP.
Right. So is this the study that you referenced earlier in your testimony?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe for the jury how that study related to the opinions in this case? Okay.
Sustained.
Are these the studies that you cite to as a basis for support for your opinions in this case?
Yes.
And is QQQ a study that also supports your opinion in this case?
Yes.
Now, in terms of your conclusions with regard to, if we can go back once more to exhibit number 1. With regard to your opinion on the cause of these injuries, can you once again state your opinion as to the cause of these injuries?
I believe these injuries were caused by a dog attack.
So I'm going to strike that word.
Yeah, so Dr. Russell, if you could, with regard to bite parlance, can you state what your opinion is with regard to bite? So do you have an opinion as to what caused these injuries?
Yes. I believe that these injuries are the result of dog bites and or claw marks.
And do you hold
There you
that
go.
opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes.
How certain is that certainty? 100% certain.
That is all the questions I have for this witness at this time.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, I just realized playing this at normal speed, I have to put up with Brennan. Ooh, that may just be enough to make me fall over and speed it up. Thank you, Daz. I appreciate it. Yes, every little bit helps.
May I?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Dr. Russell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brennan.
Dr. Russell, we've met before.
Yes.
I've asked you questions before,
Yes.
and you've testified before where I've had a chance to ask you about some of your statements and opinions, haven't I?
Yes.
Before this case, had you ever testified as an expert in dog bites in any federal court in the United States?
No.
Before this case, had you ever testified in any state court in anywhere in the country as an expert in dog bites?
No.
Other than this case, have you ever testified in a courtroom as an expert about dog bites?
No.
It's the first time for everything.
Last year, you learned that there was litigation regarding this case, Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
You learned a little bit of information about it, and it piqued your interest, didn't it?
Yes.
Did you know that the case?
And here comes the 15 minutes, or no, here comes the, I'm guessing, half hour to an hour of, you really just wanted your own 15 minutes of fame to get involved in this case, didn't you? Because you've never testified in relation to dog bites or injuries like that previously, have you? No, Brennan. But there is a first time for everything. She is still one of the most preeminent experts in this field, from what I gather. Dr. Russell, if we allowed a dog to go in and bite Brennan, would you be able to identify whether or not it was done by a dog or not?
Case was receiving a lot of attention.
No.
Did you know that it was on television?
I had no idea until I got here.
You spoke to a colleague
That must have been
in
an awesome
Los
surprise.
Angeles, correct?
I'm sorry, I spoke to who?
A colleague.
I spoke to a district attorney in Los Angeles.
And did you just bring up the subject, or did that person bring it up to you?
I brought it up.
When you brought that up, is it because you knew of the relationship between that district attorney and somebody on the defense team?
Yes.
You wanted to get involved in this high-profile case, didn't you?
No.
Well, you weren't called
I wanted to provide my
by
expertise.
anybody on the defense and retained as an expert in the traditional sense, were you?
That's correct.
It was after you reached out yourself and interjected yourself into this case, true?
I did so for a reason. And the reason being that I knew
I've never been one for this line of questioning. Like, I get why prosecutors and, you know, to a lesser extent, defense attorneys will do the exact same thing when they're trying to impeach the credibility of a witness. But I'll be perfectly honest, I've never felt like this particular line of questioning and attempt at discreditation holds any real water. Because if the individual is still substantially qualified, I don't think it really matters if they've sought to intervene themselves in a case. Because they can be doing that for all the right reasons, which I do genuinely believe is the case here with Dr. Russell. It'd be different if it'd be someone that did not have anywhere near as many qualifications as she did, or as much expertise as she did. I mean, if Dr. Barton decided that he wanted to try and intervene in this case, would anyone really care about whether or not he was the one approaching, or whether or not it was important for the defense to approach him? I mean, how would we feel if, I don't know, maybe if it was an arson case and a fire assessment team decided, oh, you know what? I've heard something about this case. I believe that there is something wrong here. And what if they contacted either party? I mean, it's never felt right with me trying to discredit a witness in this way, shape, or form.
I was one of the only people in the United States, board certified and residency trained in emergency medicine, and also residency trained in forensic pathology. And therefore, I had a unique skill or knowledge set. And I was one of the very few people that had the knowledge of dog bites, as well as those other trainings.
And because of the fact that you held this opinion about yourself, you wanted to get involved in this very high-profile case, didn't you?
I thought I could help clarify the issues as to whether or not this could be a dog bite, and maybe they could move on to something else if it wasn't.
Did you want to get involved?
No, not really.
Inevitably, you got hired by the defense, didn't you?
Yes, I reluctantly agreed.
And they paid for your time?
They are paying for the time.
Yes. Did you know that there was a relationship between the district attorney you spoke to in California and somebody on this defense table?
I know, yes.
So when you spoke to the district attorney, did you have the hope that they would reach out on your behalf to get you involved in this case?
As I said, I hope that they could reach out to the team and I could help clarify issues so that they could move on. If these weren't dog bites, then no sense spending a whole bunch of time on it.
After you testified in this case last year, you then began to advertise yourself as a dog bite expert, didn't you?
I had advertised myself many years ago as a dog bite expert. I think I'm not sure, but yes, I did advertise myself as a emergency medicine and forensic pathology expert.
Did you take
with other sub interests?
Sure. Did you take a photograph of you testifying at trial and put it on a website to promote your accomplishments?
It's a listing service for physicians, and yes, there is a photograph.
So you took a photograph from your participation in this event,
Yes, that's there.
and you used that photograph in your participation at this event to try to procure future work, didn't you?
I wouldn't say that was the reason. No.
When you listed a number of things that you have experience in after this case, you then added that you were an expert in dog bites, didn't you?
I believe I am an expert in dog bites. Yes.
But after this case, and after you took the photograph from this case, and after you created this advertising, you then added the fact that you were an expert in dog bites, didn't you?
It was all at the same time, and it was submitted at the same time.
Right. After this case, after you participated or
Well-
volunteered to involve yourself in this case, you then used it as a marketing opportunity, didn't you?
Well, I also I had retired from my full-time job, and I had time, and I wanted to get more involved in some forensic legal cases, and not specifically dog bite cases. I have much more experience with other cases.
Undoubtedly, I respect that. But simply, after you testified in this case, you did use your participation as a way to try to garner future interest in cases and income, didn't you?
I did, but I did not mention this case.
Have you testified in any other court since this case as a dog bite expert?
No.
You had written a few articles that were peer reviewed on dog bites back in, is it the 1990s?
Yes.
And they involved law enforcement canines.
Yes.
And you describe in those articles how a law enforcement canine grabs and holds. Is that the technique they call it?
Yes.
Where they lock their jaw and then they pull and hold on to the subject that they're attacking or holding.
Yes, that's what they were trained to do back then.
And you would agree that there's a difference between generally the way a domestic dog bites and a law enforcement dog bites.
Generally, yes.
Since those two articles in 1990, have you authored anything else regarding dog bites?
No.
I mean, to be fair, it's been 10 years since I've authored any sort of paper in relation to property law or conveyancing, but I've done transactions over the last decade that I would still consider me. I mean, I'm not allowed to use the word expert or specialist because you actually have to set a course to be able to do that. But I would still consider myself to be extremely knowledgeable just because I haven't written a paper on it in the last 10 years.
You had mentioned that you had gone to seminars regarding identification. Now, I had a chance to ask you a number of months ago about some details about training and education you have on pattern recognition analysis as it specifically relates to dog bites. Remember, I asked you those questions a number of months ago?
I believe you did.
And I'd asked you if you could give us any specific listed trainings that you had regarding pattern recognition analysis of dog bites. And at that time, you did not have any names of any classes or seminars or certificates that you have. You mentioned again today that you have attended seminars regarding dog identification analysis. Do you now know some of those trainings and seminars? And are any of those listed on your CV?
The trainings that I went to on bite marks in general, they were bite marks in general, and included things like how to determine what was a human bite, how to differentiate a human bite from a dog bite. But no, I did not specifically attend seminars limited to dog bites only. However, actually, there was one this past February that I did attend at the American Academy of Forensic Science.
Over your many, many decades, you did not attend any seminars on pattern recognition analysis of dog bites, did you?
Of specifically dog bites? No.
I only want to talk about dog bites. I know you're well trained and educated. I respect that, but I want to talk about dog bites. You didn't attain any certificates in pattern recognition analysis of dog bites, did you?
I don't think there are any that exist, any training programs like that.
In fact, forensically, have you ever been presented with a wound and been asked to determine whether or not the source of it was a dog bite, other than right here in this very case? Have you ever been asked to do that in your entire history?
In my clinical career, perhaps once or twice, but not, not that I can give you a specific name.
Well, the couple times, tell us what stands out. When were you asked ever over your entire career to do a forensic evaluation of a wound and identify whether it was a dog bite? When did that happen?
A forensic evaluation? No, never.
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 Okay.
It just doesn't come up.
Okay. And so this is the first shot, the first crack you've had at looking at a photograph and trying to make a determination based just on a photograph whether or not the wound is generated from a particular mechanism, and in this case, your opinion, a dog bite.
No, actually, I disagree. I've been taking photographs of dog bites since the 1990s.
And when you took the photographs, you knew they were dog bites.
I did know that there were dog bites,
Have you-
yes. I have a collection.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
That was it.
So not when you knew it was a dog bite and you took a photo. I know you have an interest. I'm asking, other than this case, there was never, ever a time in your career where you were presented with a photo and asked to give an opinion whether the mechanism of injury was a dog bite, other than this case.
That's correct.
So this is not a pattern recognition analysis engagement that you have any experience in before this effort.
I've recognized that pattern many times.
I appreciate your opinion, but I want to ask my question. You do not have experience over your long, accomplished career in the effort of pattern recognition analysis of dog bite wounds. Isn't that fair to say?
Okay.
You mentioned before, and you just mentioned again, so I want to ask you some more questions. You believe that you are uniquely qualified to look at a photograph and give an opinion about the source of the injury.
I'm not uniquely qualified. That's done all the time in forensic pathology. Many forensic pathologists do that.
Did you just say you're one of the very few physicians in the United States who has both the forensic and the clinical experience to look at a photograph and make a determination, the mechanism of injury?
No, I said, if I said that, then that was incorrect. I meant dog bites. But your question just now was not specific to dog bites.
Right.
Postmortem photographs are used all the time in forensic pathology for second opinions.
You're right. My apologies. Did you say today and before, have you said that you believe you're one of the only few physicians in the United States who could authoritatively distinguish between causes of wounds when it relates to dog bites?
I did say that, and that's because of my unique training. I don't know of another doctor in the whole United States that did 2 residencies, one in emergency medicine and one in forensic pathology, and has a lifelong interest in dog bites.
So, Dr. Russell, from your perspective, as far as you know, you were the only person in the entire United States of America who was qualified to look at a photograph and make a determination whether the wound was derived from a dog bite.
No.
Well,
I
hang
am
on.
one of the
That's reductio ad absurdum. No, come on. You know exactly what you're saying there, and it's an inappropriate question. She very clearly has her own unique abilities and a unique. What am I trying to say here? I mean, I would argue that every doctor has their own unique ability to review and apply critical thinking to wounds and that sort of thing, because they all have their own unique experiences. That's a very friggin' niche crossover.
I'm the only physician that I know of that can do that. There may be, a few others out there. There may be, but I don't know of any other physicians that can do that.
Do you recognize anybody other than yourself who has this very particular expertise to be able to do this kind of work?
I'm not aware of anyone.
You were a medical examiner, a forensic pathologist,
Yes.
and you know there's about, or would you agree there's probably about 900 to 1,000 medical examiners around the country at the same time over a period of time?
I believe that there might be, there's probably, I think there's around 500 or 600 practicing forensic pathologists.
And do you think because they are forensic pathologists, those 500 or 600 people have the unique qualifications as you do to be able to give an opinion about the genesis of a wound?
Wounds in general, perhaps. Dog bite wounds, I doubt that very many of them have a specific interest in dog bite wounds.
And so you think that of all those forensic pathologists, medical examiners, you think that qualification and experience itself is not enough to qualify somebody to give an opinion on a photograph about the genesis of a wound related to dog bites?
Well, if a forensic pathologist has autopsied 1 or 2 cases of dog bite wounds versus my experience with over 500 to 1,000 cases of dog bite wounds, I'm not so sure that person would be a very good expert in that kind of a case.
Have you ever heard of a doctor named Dr. La Posada?
I've heard of Dr. La Posada.
Have you ever read any reports by Dr. La Posada?
No.
Has anybody ever shared with you any information or opinions of Dr. La Posada?
I believe she has a very good reputation.
Have you ever, well, how do you believe that? Who told you
Because I've heard of her name at national organizations. I believe she's given presentations nationally. I've seen her name, over a dozen years or so.
that? Do you know whether or not she has any participation in this case?
I believe she does.
Well, so you know when you're providing accolades that she has maybe some involvement in this case? You know that?
I would provide those same accolades if she didn't have involvement in this case.
Do you know that she has involvement in this case?
I believe she does. The attorneys have not shared everything with me
Well,
in terms of who the witnesses are.
somebody must have shared her name. Who shared her name with you?
I'm very familiar with her name
You just did.
outside this case.
Who shared her name that she may be a participant in this case?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Well, somebody might.
I think I got a file or something, but yeah.
So when you were reviewing this case, did you get materials from any of the attorneys authored by Dr. La Posada?
I don't think I read a report. I was very interested in reading a report by Dr. La Posada. I was very interested, but I didn't see one.
So when you received materials in this case, you didn't read all the materials the defense gave you?
I don't believe they gave me the report.
What report?
Any report that Dr. La Posada might have written.
Do you know whether or not you've received the report or not?
I received something that had her name on it. I don't remember what it was, but I was looking for a medical examiner's or a report, or an actual report, and I did not see one.
Dr. Russell, you are meticulous when you look and examine things.
Right.
So you would know what you've received and what you've read and what you haven't. So the fact that you're telling us that you saw something with her name on it, can you give us a little more information and share with us what it is you actually received about this Dr. Laposada? What did you get from the defense?
I saw something. I think it was the name of a file folder, but I looked for a report and there was no report in it.
Did you ever ask for it?
I didn't ask because I didn't ask. I really wanted to read it, but I didn't. It wasn't given to me, so I didn't ask.
Were you ever told what other people's opinions might be regarding those photographs?
I'm aware that there was a Dr. Sheridan involved in a previous proceeding, and he believed that those were consistent with dog bites.
Did you ever receive any reports from the defense about what other person's opinions would be in this trial about dog bites?
Oh, yes, I received a report authored by a non-physician. Yes.
So when you say non-physician, you're trying to make the point because you think that person might be your opponent in this case?
I don't have any opponents.
Okay, so why did you qualify him as a non-physician?
Because I believe that in order to really understand wounds on a human being, one needs to have treated wounds, seen lots of wounds, and I think that the person that is best qualified for that is a physician.
So a medical examiner wouldn't cut it, in your opinion?
A medical examiner is a physician.
So you think a medical examiner has enough experience to come in and give an opinion on
Some-
dog bites?
Some, but in their case, I would hope that they have had actual clinical experience with autopsying some cases where there were dog bite wounds, because I don't think they worked in the emergency room or any other clinical setting where they treated people. So I'd want to see if they had experience with dog bites.
I'm doctor as a disqualification. How about a dog trainer? Would a dog trainer who's not a doctor have the experience in your mind to come in and give an opinion about photographs and the genesis of the wounds?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it.
How about a non-doctor?
Of course you are,
You
Bev.
said you've made a distinction.
Uh-huh.
They're simply a dog trainer, maybe even an uncertified dog trainer. Would that person have the qualifications in your mind to be able to look at photographs and determine whether or not the cause of the injury is a dog bite?
There may be a certain small subset of people who have, very much experience with dog bites that could qualify, as suggesting that these are consistent with dog bites. But I don't think that they could definitively. I think that someone could, who dealt with many dog bites in the past on humans, could possibly say that they were consistent with.
Even if they didn't have the clinical experience?
Well, I'd prefer that to hear that information from a physician, but I wouldn't rule out that only doctors, only a physician, MD, could say that something was a dog bite.
It seems like the standard is now kind of changing a little bit. Because when I asked
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustain.
you mentioned the other person, you disqualified the person because they weren't a doctor. It seems now in some instances, you're willing to accept a non-doctor into your very select group of veterans.
I can explain. If someone had looked at perhaps hundreds and hundreds of wounds inflicted by a dog that they know was inflicted by a dog, and they saw the resulting photographs on a person, I think that particular person may be able to make some comment as to whether or not some wounds are consistent. However, if in terms of a medical examiner, if they've autopsied one case or two cases of dog bites and they're trying to testify based on some pictures, I would be a little concerned about that.
Does qualification for this type of business, in your mind, depend on who hires you?
Absolutely not.
Suffice to say, you've never taken a class in the forensic analysis of dog bites.
I don't think any class exists.
But I'm asking about your experience.
Well, that's correct.
You haven't, have you?
That's correct. I can't take a course that doesn't exist.
You've never engaged in any type of opinion looking at photographs and then had that opinion peer reviewed by other dog bite experts, have you?
No,
Do you have any experience in veterinarian medicine?
I'm aware of it. That's my experience.
Do you have any accomplishments like degrees?
No.
Now, you've testified a number of times in this case, haven't you?
Yes.
And when you testify, you know there's a court reporter and there are transcripts, correct?
Yes.
You originally testified when you first came out and volunteered to testify last year, and there was a hearing before trial, wasn't there?
Excuse me? Say again,
When you
please.
volunteered to come out last year, there was a hearing before you testified at trial, wasn't there?
Yes.
Do you remember that was on June 18, 2022?
Sounds right.
And then you then testified at trial on June 21st, 2022.
Yes.
I didn't have the privilege of meeting you on either of those events, did I?
No.
But since then, we have met,
Yes.
and we had a chance to speak at a subsequent hearing on December 12, 2024.
Yes.
And then after that, we again had an opportunity to discuss this on January 7, 2025.
Yes.
When you reviewed the case, when you first reviewed it before you testified last year, you had very limited information, didn't you?
Yes.
You had just an autopsy report, photographs from the coroner, photographs from the hospital, an emergency room report. Yes?
Yes, I had more than that.
The medical examiner file had a toxicology report.
Yes. And there was more.
Okay.
I believe there was a dog bite, a town of Canton report.
Okay. So when you had an opportunity to look at the medical examiner's report, you yourself had been a medical examiner, correct?
Yes.
And there was a unique advantage of actually conducting an autopsy as opposed to just looking at photographs, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
And if you were actually conducting the autopsy, you firsthand can make observations about injuries, make measurements, and see things that don't always appear in photographs.
That's correct.
And when you would do medical exams, you had a distinct advantage over people who would later see your work, a written report, or photographs, because you were there actually conducting the investigation.
Yes.
And it's for that reason that when you testified before, you have acknowledged that you relied on Dr. Scorti-Bello's report for information,
Yes.
because you didn't have the benefit of doing measurements or looking at depths or anything else firsthand.
Yes. Correct.
And when you looked at that photograph that you discussed with the jury, you also had a chance to see Dr. Scorti-Bello's report regarding the abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm.
Yes.
She described those abrasions as superficial, didn't she?
Yes.
She actually gave measurements, 3 centimeter superficial abrasion on the right medial upper arm, right?
Yes.
You not only read that, you deferred to her ability to have a firsthand observation, and you accepted that as true, didn't you?
Yes, but there's no interpretation of that abrasion.
Multiple abrasions from 2 to 3 millimeters and up to 7 centimeters on the posterior right arm and forearm.
Yes.
Did you read that from
I
Dr.
did.
Scorti-Bello?
Yes.
Did you accept her finding and observation?
Yes.
And you would agree she was in a far superior position than you when she made these observations and notes, correct?
They are not inconsistent with what I said.
That's not what I asked, though.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be sharp. I
Okay.
apologize. Did you rely on her ability and firsthand observation of those wounds?
Yes.
And did you appreciate or accept the fact she had a superior opportunity to evaluate those wounds firsthand that you did not have the benefit of?
She made no interpretation of those ones.
Well, did you know that Dr. Scorti-Bello had described them as superficial?
They are.
Did you know that she said there was no depth and no puncture?
Not inconsistent with what I said.
I understand, doctor, but I'm asking you, do you
I am.
know that her position is that there was no puncture and no depth to those wounds.
Objection, Your Honor. Can we have the witness see the report that he keeps referring to?
Can you answer that question without saying it, or do you need to see it?
Well, I remember it, but there's no inconsistency here. I agree with that.
Would you accept that Dr. Scotti-Bello's opinion is that there was no depth and no puncture to those wounds?
May I see the report?
It might not be in the report. I'm asking about any testimony, anything that she's ever said. Would you agree or accept her position that there is no puncture or depth to those wounds?
Objection, Your Honor. I'd like all the questions that were about an autopsy. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall at that side.
Read to you
Oop, too far.
May I?
Yes, please.
Dr. Russell, I read to you the measurements that were in Dr. Scotti-Bello's report. Are you aware that she testified that these superficial abrasions did not have any depth or any puncture?
I don't recall that.
Well, would you agree if Dr. Scotti-Bello testified in this court that those superficial abrasions did not have any puncture or depth? Would you agree with that assessment?
Objection, Your Honor.
In that form, it's sustained.
Would you agree that the superficial abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm had no punctures?
I agree.
Would you agree that the abrasions, the superficial abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm had no depth?
No measurable depth, yes.
Between the last time you
Hey, cut
testified
Chris.
and then you testified here today, have you spoken to the attorneys at all regarding the issue of punctures?
No,
Because you are agreeing today that those superficial abrasions did not have any punctures, right?
they don't appear to have any punctures.
But you, in the past, have testified very, very differently than that, haven't you?
No.
Now, we've spoken many times. I'm going to go through many of those examples later, but we'll do that a little bit later, Dr. Russell. That you have changed your opinion. Would it be fair to say that you have changed your opinions about the superficial abrasions to John O'Keefe's arm many times?
I don't believe that's fair to say.
In the past, when you were describing Mr. O'Keefe's superficial abrasions on his arm, did you give varying and different opinions about the cause of each individual wound, area of wound?
I don't believe so.
When you first gave opinions, that was before the last proceeding. You came in and you were questioned before you testified in that initial proceeding, right? I'm trying to be as specific as I can. You testified last year?
Yes,
And
in
Please.
there was a hearing and then there was a proceeding.
Okay. That prior hearing, can we call the first event the prior hearing and the next one the prior proceeding?
I'm confused.
I don't want to confuse you. I'm just trying to follow the rules. You testified twice last year, didn't you?
3 times.
3 times. Okay. The first time you testified was just before the judge?
Yes,
Okay. When you first testified before the judge, do you remember that you had uncertainty about how each and every one of those wounds was caused?
I don't remember that.
And do you remember when you then testified a couple days later at the proceeding that some of your opinions changed from the first time you testified?
I don't believe that.
And then when you later met me and we've had a chance to talk over the last 2 events, December and January, would it be fair to say that your opinions regarding the individual areas of wound changed?
I don't believe so.
Okay. At some point before or during our conversations in December and January, you wrote a report, didn't you?
Yes,
When you wrote that report, you hadn't written a report before the first time you came in and testified, had you?
that's correct.
And it was between those hearings in December and in January where you wrote your first report.
Sounds correct.
You dated that report December 9th, 2024. Does that ring a bell?
Yes,
When you wrote that report, you did not write that report alone, did you?
I did.
You had some help, didn't you?
Not in the content of the report.
Well, you sent the report back a number of times for review and revisions, didn't you?
In terms of organization,
And some of the language in this report is really not your language. It's the language of somebody who helped you write some of this, isn't it?
you know, if somebody helped me write it, it would have been much better written than that.
Didn't you agree that you had some assistance with the report? Haven't you testified to that before?
And no, and in terms of organization, there was some comments though, this sentence belongs, with this paragraph or whatever. But in terms of content, that was my work.
Well, it was your report, correct?
It's my report.
And when you write a report, it's your words, not somebody else's. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
But nevertheless, you had somebody assisting you. True.
In terms of organization, yes.
Who was helping you with the report?
It was somebody from the law office.
Well, it was this gentleman right here, Attorney Alisi, who just asked you questions. He helped you,
No,
didn't he?
actually it wasn't.
Was it from his law firm that somebody helped you?
I believe so, but it was in terms of organization.
Do you remember who was helping you with your report?
I don't remember her name.
Would you agree that after that report was written, many of your opinions changed?
No,
In your report, you provide your background. Yes?
yes,
And you've been licensed to practice medicine since 1988
yes,
as a physician?
yes.
And you've been licensed to practice medicine as a surgeon?
It's called, in California, it's called physician and surgeon license.
Do you have a physician and surgeon's license?
I do.
Okay. Have you ever practiced as a surgeon?
Well, in the emergency department, we do surgery. We have to do some surgery sometimes. We have to open up people's chests and, and compress the heart sometimes when they have gunshot wounds to the chest. I've had to put chest tubes in. I've had to debride dog bite wounds and other wounds. So yes, there is a component of surgery.
If you do stitches, that's considered surgery, isn't it?
Maybe.
Well, medically speaking, stitches is surgery.
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. Do you have a surgeon's license?
I have a physician and surgeon's license in California.
Now, when you first looked at this case and testified, do you remember when you were looking at Mr. O'Keefe's superficial wounds, you said that you thought they appeared to be consistent with an animal attack?
I do remember that.
And when you were describing animal attack, you were a lot less specific than you were today, weren't you?
Yes.
You were less sure about your opinion when you first testified about this case than you provided to this jury today.
I was certain that it was a dog attack. However, As I mentioned before to you, in medicine, we're taught never, nothing is 100%, and therefore never say, anything's 100%. So that's why I gave that generalization. However, I have reviewed the case. I personally was certain that those were dog marks. Now, I have reviewed this case over and over and over again. Plus, I've read additional articles more than once, and which substantiate again my findings. So, so my degree of certainty perhaps increased.
So when you first testified in this case, back in June of 2022, are you agreeing that your testimony was less certain than today?
I believed that it was a dog attack at that time.
When you testified, you didn't say dog attack, you said animal attack at the beginning, didn't you?
Yes.
And when you were asked about the cause, you said that it could be bite or scratch wounds.
Correct.
So back in June, when you were looking at individual wounds, you, at that time anyways, were unable to differentiate between bite and scratch wounds.
They are very similar.
I understand, but today you seem pretty unequivocal. So I want to go back to the beginning and see the evolution. I'm asking a question.
All right. So the argumentative part is out. Ask the question, Mr. Brennan.
I want to go back to identify the evolution of your opinions. So let's start at the beginning.
So question, please.
At the beginning, before your opinion evolved, you started with an opinion that this could have been either bite or scratch wounds, right?
Yes.
And if there was actually a methodology where you could identify superficial abrasions and make a determination whether it was from an animal or a dog, there would be something definitive, specific, where you could identify a scratch from a bite wound, wouldn't there be?
Not unless there was a piece of tooth in the wound or a piece of nail. There would otherwise not be any specificity.
You talked about patterns when you first testified back in June of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talked about the patterns, again, you had some uncertainty whether those patterns were caused by nails, claws, or could have been caused by teeth. Isn't that fair to say originally that was your position?
There is some overlap in terms of the appearances. They can appear very similar, and they can be arranged very similar in terms of parallel lines.
In fact, when you first testified, you weren't consistently even saying that it was a dog, or as you say today, dog attack. You were saying, in your opinion, they were the result of animal bites or scratches. That was what you originally opined, isn't it?
We just went through that, yes.
And at some point, you said that it might most likely be a large dog. Do you remember that?
Objection, Your Honor. Can we approach with regard to this line of questioning?
So why don't we take a break for today? All right, so jurors, we're not going to finish this today in the next 5 minutes, so it seems like it's a good place to break. I do have to give you those same cautions. Please do not discuss this case with.
I'll be honest, I think it was inappropriate for her to stop the day there, because there was a reasonable objection there on the line of questioning, and now that's just going to sit with the jury. Whichever side you fall on, that's kind of inappropriate. But anyway. Alright. I think the next day starts with a sidebar, so I am going to have to pull over. And I want to say there's a place that I can pull over up here from memory. Oh yeah, there we go. Alrighty, where are we? Doesn't look like a sidebar went very long, which It's good. We'll actually speed this up now. Thank you to the 88 of you already watching. If you haven't already, just double check. Oh, hang on. Where's my light? There we go. Thank you to the 88 of you watching. I know I've been fairly quiet, to be perfectly honest. It was a very long day at work, and I don't have anything really clever to say at the moment. But if you haven't already, hit that like button, people. Well, Deanna, if you feel like a snack, get a snack. No one's going to say anything about it or make any comment. Oh shit! I didn't even have the banner on. I went to all the effort of putting a banner together. It was supposed to be on. Hang on, where's it gone? There we go. Oh, I don't like that. That'll do. That's a bit better. All this talk of snacks is making me hungry. I'm going home to bland chicken. Yay! I know it sounds stupid, but you all know that I love my bland chicken. God damn, how much did I miss this by?
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Ms. Reed.
There we
Good
go.
morning, Joyce. I have to ask you those same 3 questions. Were you all able to follow my instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left here yesterday? Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case since we left yesterday? Everyone said no or should. Is Dr. Russell in back there?
Mr. Brennan,
No,
you can set
because
up.
Jeremy's conduct would just add an extra layer of shit show to this whole thing. Ooh, hamburger
I'll
sounds
remind you,
good.
you're still under oath. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Russell.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Mr. Brennan.
I had asked you yesterday if your
That was not a happy
opinions
moment.
regarding the wounds on Mr. O'Keefe's arm changed between when you testified last year and then the more recent hearings that we've had over the past 4 or 5 months. Do you remember that question?
Yes,
And when I asked you that question, I asked if you had help with your report, and you told us that there was a woman who helped you with your report.
I told you that there was someone who helped me or made suggestions in organizing the report, having certain sentences placed in certain categories.
When I asked you about the identity, the person who actually helped you, I asked you if it was one of the attorneys, and you had said no.
That is correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. May I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. You had testified in December 22nd, 2024 in this case.
I believe it was that date, yes.
And when you testified back in December of 2024, do you remember I asked you who it was that had assisted you with your report?
I don't remember that specifically.
Well, I'm going to show you a page from the testimony. This is from the hearing. And I asked you, line 21, page 207, did anybody help you write this report? And what did you say?
I wrote the report.
If you could finish, please.
I had some help with some minor edits, rearranging, some paragraphs or whatsoever, but putting things in the right category.
And I said, okay. And you answered?
No, I wrote the report.
And then finally, I asked, who helped you with your report? What did you tell us?
I said, Mr. Alessi.
Is Mr. Alessi, is that gentleman the attorney who asked questions on direct examination?
Yes.
And so did Mr. Alessi help you with your report?
What I recall is we discussed the report, but I recall that it was someone else that actually helped me rearrange the report. That's my memory right now.
Is your memory different now than it was last December?
Well, I don't think so, but you have something in writing.
Do you think you would have testified to that if it was inaccurate?
I don't. Mr. Alessi did not help write the report. He may have helped organize and make a suggestion about what is training versus what is experience, but he did not help me write the report.
Did you have any help trying to describe methodology?
No.
You had any help talking about differential diagnosis?
No, I'm very familiar with differential
And
diagnosis.
so after that report was written, is there any reason why some of your opinions have changed?
I don't believe my opinions have changed.
When you testified at the hearing last year, June 21st, 2024, did you express that you couldn't say with 100% certainty what type of animal, in your opinion, caused those wounds?
100% certainty, that is absolutely correct. And I'd like to see that, but yes, I that's my recollection.
If it's your recollection, I'm happy to show you what
Yes,
you
please.
testified to. You want to
Yes,
see it again?
yes.
Okay. And by the way, between last night and today, did you get any advice from anybody suggesting you should ask for a transcript when I ask you a question? Did that advice come your way?
That's my general advice from previous times.
Or did you have any advice last night about that?
Yes.
Who told you last night that you should always ask for a transcript when I'm asking you questions?
Well, I think it was just Mr. Alessi.
So did you and Mr. Alessi, you know there's a sequestration order, don't you?
Yes.
A sequestration order that you're not supposed to discuss the case at all with anybody?
Well, we
during
didn't discuss specifics.
Do you know that the sequestration order mandates that you not discuss anything about the case from when you start your testimony until you end your testimony? You know that, right?
I understand that there is a sequestration order.
Do you understand the sequestration order mandates that you're not supposed to speak to people, including the attorneys, about this case overnight? Did you understand that?
There were no specifics discussed.
Or did you understand that you weren't supposed to, is what I'm asking? Did you know that's a violation of the sequestration
No, I did
order
not.
to speak to the attorneys overnight?
I did not know that that particular conversation would be a violation.
So did you meet with it?
I mean, that's not great. I mean, the attorney should have known better. You know, if there's a if there is a sequestration, oh my God, I can't even say it. Sequestration order, you're not even supposed to say hi. So no, that's not great.
Attorney Alessi last night?
No.
How was it that you had a conversation with him?
Actually, it might have been in the vehicle.
You drove together?
Yes.
So did you commute to and from court together with Attorney Alessi?
Well, there's a driver.
Okay. Who else is in the car when you left court yesterday?
The driver.
When
Oh,
you-
no, I wasn't with him yesterday. No. Not in the car yesterday. No.
Well, you just said that you spoke to Attorney Alessi yesterday. And I'm trying to figure out, when was it that you were having conversations with Mr. Alessi relative to the sequestration order that you're under?
This morning, riding to court
Okay, so you and Attorney Alessi drove to court?
with the limo driver. Yes.
Who was in the limo with you and Attorney Alessi on the way to court today?
That was just us.
Just you two?
Yeah.
What else did you both talk about other than that you should ask for a transcript every time I ask you a question?
That's what we talked about specific to this case.
Was it a long conversation?
No, not at all.
The entire ride here, there must be more you spoke about other than just a sequestration order.
We did. We spoke about Boston, how I love Boston area. We spoke about New York. We spoke about other things. And in fact, I have to say that even on the ride home, back to the hotel yesterday with others in the car, nobody spoke about the case.
But I'm talking about this morning when you did speak about the case. What else? Not about the Red
That's-
Sox or the weather. What else did you talk to Attorney Alessi about this morning other than you should ask for a transcript every time I ask you a question?
We talked about what I did last night.
About this case?
No,
I'm sorry, but I'm asking about this case.
that was it.
I want to know what all the discussions were between you and this attorney today or last night about this case.
Just that I should ask for a transcript.
Well, there must have been some concept. There must have been some context. He didn't just turn to you talking about the weather and say, hey, you should ask for a transcript. You must have been talking about something.
He also generally, not today, but generally says, be honest. Always be honest.
Fantastic. But this morning about your testimony, what did he tell you? Did he tell you this morning you should be honest?
Not this morning.
Does anybody need to remind you to be honest when you testify?
No.
What else did he talk? How did it come up? Hey, by the way, ask for transcripts.
I don't even know how it came up. I didn't put much significance to it.
Well, it was just moments ago it happened because you just got to court. You can't remember the context of the sage advice of Attorney Alessi?
No.
Do you have any memory issues?
Oh, no.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'll be honest, that was kind of funny.
Since you've asked for the transcript, I have it for you. Dr. Russell, this is June 21st, 2024. I had asked you whether you expressed that you couldn't say with 100% certainty. You agreed with my answer, so there's no need to try to refresh your memory, but I'm going to show it to you because you asked. Take a look at line 16. Is that now?
I can understand being furious with him over that.
You were less than, you couldn't be 100% certain.
That looks
I mean, it is
consistent.
very rude.
You want more time with the transcript?
No.
Has anybody else talked to you about your testimony today overnight, Dr. Russell?
No.
When you testified last year, same transcript that we just looked at, do you remember when you gave your opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, you said that you thought the wounds were from an animal, possibly a large dog?
On that same date,
Yes,
may I see the
of
transcript?
course. Pursuant to Attorney Alessi's advice, let me approach.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm gonna strike that, disregard that, Jonas.
Yeah, no, that's not okay. Not only is that argumentative commentary, that's him just being a dick. That's not on. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it's not great that Alessi had any contact with her whatsoever. I'm surprised that they were in the same car, if I'm perfectly honest. But yeah, no, that's not.
Yes. What page you want us to?
23. June 21st, 2024, Doctor?
June 21st.
Page 23, line 14. Will you ask the question based on everything we've discussed today? Is it your opinion based on a reasonable degree of medical certainty these injuries were from an animal attack, possibly a large dog? What did you say?
I said yes.
Thank you. Have that back.
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you.
Being a lawyer
When you get-
myself, I do find that there are a number of slime balls in the profession,
You agreed
unfortunately.
when you were assessing the wound, you used the word or adopted the word possibly, didn't you?
Explain the context of it,
Sure.
that sentence?
Sure. Go right ahead.
No, you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Then I'm sorry. Please rephrase the question.
When you were asked about your opinion last year, not this year, last year, about whether to a reasonable degree of medical certainty the injuries were from an animal attack, possibly a large dog, you agreed with that characterization. A large animal, possibly a dog, didn't you?
Yes, an animal, possibly a large dog. Last year, yes.
When you were on direct examination, there were tons of questions about this word methodology. Do you remember all those questions you were asked?
In June?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay. Yes.
Yes. And when you were asked about methodology, was that an attempt to try to explain that you weren't just looking at an abrasion and guessing or eyeballing it? You're trying to suggest some type of scientific or medical process to give some type of certainty to your opinion?
That is the process I used.
When you talked about methodology yesterday, you talked about your experience in methodology with knife wounds and gunshot wounds, correct?
Yes.
But there was no methodology whatsoever regarding looking at a photograph and then identifying whether that is consistent with dog bites, is there?
I disagree.
When you described methodology, you were asked by Attorney Alessi whether or not you've engaged in that methodology regarding dog bites. Did you agree that there is really no methodology regarding dog bites?
I disagree.
When you use the word methodology regarding dog bites, there isn't something specific you're looking at as if you were looking at a fingerprint. They're a point of comparison. You don't do that, do you?
There are no specific points that are published by a organization, for instance, on how to determine something is a dog bite. However, I did use different methodologies, including what we talked about, the differential diagnosis, the pattern recognition. Pattern recognition, again, is so important in medicine. It's what pathologists use to diagnose tumors.
There is no standard. There is no recognized standard anywhere for methodology on how to identify a dog bite wound, is there?
There is no published standard from an organization that I am aware of.
So there is no source. There is no recognized community. There's no certification. There is no recognized method in identifying a superficial abrasion as a dog bite. Isn't that fair to say?
As in many conditions in the medical field, there are no certifications.
How about published standards? Is there any published standards whatsoever, any, regarding claims that a superficial abrasion is a dog bite? Are there any published standards by any organization?
No, but there would have to be thousands of published standards to identify the causes of the thousands of different types of abrasions. So no, there's no published standards.
No published standards. There is nowhere you can point to where the so-called methodology that you were telling the jury yesterday is a readily accepted standard in the dog bite community. You can't point to anywhere, can you?
There are peer-reviewed articles which list recommendations on how to determine something is from some wounds are from a dog. These are peer-reviewed articles written by esteemed physicians that have analyzed dog bites and have published these and have published an approach to identifying, particularly a forensic approach to identifying dog bites.
Let me ask you the question again, Dr. Russell. Can you point to one place where there is a readily accepted standard in the dog bite community for identifying dog bites? One article, one journal, one book. Can you point to any?
Well, I'm going to mention the articles I mentioned earlier, the article with the lead author of Dr. DeMunich and the article with the lead author of Dr. Pollack. And although they're not standards, they are recommendations.
I'm going to ask you the question one more time before I approach. Can you point to one place, where there is a readily accepted standard in the dog bite community for identifying dog bites?
No.
And so with no readily accepted standards in the dog bite community, no defined methodology, when you look at a photo like you do of John O'Keefe's arm, you're just eyeballing it based on your personal experience with dog bites, rather than relying on some type of scientific foundation that has been published and accepted in the community.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
Yeah, 2 hours each
Isn't that
way.
fair to say, Dr. Russell?
No, absolutely not. There are many, many conditions in medicine where there are no standards developed, and yet doctors make and nurse practitioners and the like make diagnoses all the time on these various medical conditions, and more importantly, they treat them because they require treatment. There are not published standards on every single of the 10,000 or more medical conditions that exist, including dog bites.
I'm not talking about a stuffy nose or a broken leg. We're talking about dog bites here. So let's focus on dog bites if you can indulge me, doctor. Regarding dog bites, since there is no standard practice, there is no accepted methodology, and since there is no accepted and approved guidelines, you are essentially simply looking at a picture, a photograph, and just using your past experience with treating dog bites as the basis for your opinion. Isn't that fair to say?
I don't think so. I'm using my past experience, my strong interest in dog bites over 30 years, and
I wish
and the method and the articles that I read, the numerous articles I read, but the articles that have recommendations. I'm using all of that combined to come up with a methodology for determining that those are the result of a dog.
When you say coming up with a methodology, are you saying that you're creating your own methodology, that you're the person who has the standard and nobody else? Is that your position, Dr. Russell?
No, the phrasing was not good there. I use standard methodology.
I mean, if you have to create your own methodology when none exists, I mean, it's literally, again, there's a first time for everything. I mean, if there is no standard across the board that is widely accepted, then at least having a precedent process in place probably isn't a bad thing, even if no one else adopts it. So I don't know that's a very strong argument. But anyway.
Of pattern recognition and differential diagnosis.
There is no standard in the medical community relative to differential diagnosis and pattern recognition as it relates to dog bites, not other areas of medicine, dog bites. There is no accepted methodology, is there?
That's true.
You mentioned that you have this strong interest in dog bites. Let me borrow a phrase. Do you think you had any confirmation bias when you got into this case?
I don't think so.
Well, you definitely want to be in this case. You weren't sought out. You sought the case.
That is incorrect.
And you said you had a strong interest in dogs. And that is one of the reasons you wanted to get involved in this case. Isn't that fair to say?
No, that's actually an unfair statement. I did not want to get involved. I wanted to offer my knowledge and experience to help clarify issues. I did not want to become an expert witness in this case. And I used, again, as I do on just about every medical condition that I look at and every wound that I look at, I do a differential diagnosis. What else could this be? What else could have caused these scratches and abrasions and wounds? What else before I come to my conclusion?
On your ride over here today, were you instructed that when I ask a question, rather than answer it, give a long explanation about something else?
No.
I would like to put up an exhibit of Mr. O'Keefe's arm. And I want to ask you some questions about it. You and I have had many conversations about Mr. O'Keefe's superficial scratches before, haven't we?
Yes.
And would you agree, looking at these, they are superficial abrasions? Do you agree with that characterization?
Yes.
When we last spoke, just for background, to remind ourselves, we broke these into separate parts so we could discuss them by number, just for the sense of clarity. And we discussed this as wound number 1. Do you remember that?
Grouping number 1, yes.
Number 2?
Yes.
Number 3?
Yes.
4?
Yes.
5.
Which did you call 4? 4, 5, 6, maybe.
Okay. So as we go through, I'm going to identify them by number. That wasn't done by anybody else. It was just during our discussion so we can have clarity. Is that fair?
Okay.
Sustained.
Is it fair if I refer to this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
I think so.
Okay. When you testified June 18th of 2024, last year, when you came in, you were asked questions before the actual hearing. You were asked questions about this particular superficial abrasion, weren't you?
I'd have to see the transcript. I believe so, but I'd have to see the transcript.
Do you remember when you were first giving opinion testimony about this specific abrasion, wound number 1? Do you remember you saying that you thought it was either teeth or nails?
I'd have to see the transcript again.
I will give you the transcript. And as I'm doing that, let me ask you, do you remember your testimony about what you actually said?
Yes, Your Honor.
So do you remember your testimony?
For each specific day, no. I remember generally, but not for each specific day.
If you
I've
have
been
an
here many
opinion,
times.
I'm going to bring your transcript up to remind you, but if you have an opinion, it shouldn't change, right? It should always be the same?
Generally, yes.
Okay. So let me ask you before we talk about what you said at the beginning. What is this from? Teeth or nails?
It could be either, but I think that's from teeth.
So when you say they could be either, if you have a methodology and you have a certain standard where you can identify something based on a standard, there wouldn't be so much uncertainty, would there? You'd be able to look at this, consider the methodology, and either come to an opinion whether it was teeth, nails, or something. Right?
If you can't do
Mr.
80,
Brennan,
don't get on the
I Brennan
freeway.
explained earlier, but the nail of a dog tends to be cone-shaped, conical in shape, and very similar to the nails that the canine teeth of dogs. So the shape and the fact that they come to a point makes some wounds indistinguishable.
Are you saying that nails of a dog are so similar to the teeth that you can't tell the difference between them when you're looking at a wound?
I'm saying that they can cause similar-looking abrasions.
Are you able, as the premier expert in the United States on dog bites, able to tell the difference between teeth
Objection.
and claw nails of an animal when you're looking at a wound?
Individually, okay, that's a very interesting question. Sometimes it's difficult because they can have similar appearing wounds. So you have to look at the overall pattern in order to make some conclusions.
Well, when you first started testifying in this case, you never suggested you had to look at everything in totality. You were giving opinions regarding individual wounds. Isn't that fair to say?
No.
It wasn't until I began asking you questions and you had inconsistent answers that you've now changed from rather than identifying individual wounds, now you're saying I can't identify individual wounds, but I can tell you in totality.
I disagree with that. I believe that in the very first time I testified, I mentioned that the overall pattern was important.
When you first testified, so today, before we get to your testimony, you're saying this could be either teeth or nails, but you think it's probably teeth.
Correct.
How probable? Do you think it's certainly teeth to a reasonable degree of medical certainty? You're not sure? What is the value of your certainty or lack of certainty about what caused this wound?
Reasonable degree of medical certainty.
What is a reasonable degree of medical certainty? That what?
That those are caused by teeth.
Teeth. Okay. When you first testified, your position was it could have been teeth or nails. That is different than saying to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, teeth, isn't it?
No, there is a small possibility that they could be caused by nails.
When you first testified, you didn't qualify it as a small possibility, did you?
I perhaps wasn't asked.
Well, you answered. Do you remember when you were asked about it and you answered? You talked about that there was a pattern close to the shoulder with parallel marks. Do you remember?
Do I remember what?
Saying that this is a pattern close to the shoulder, right? That they're superficial. You agree with that still?
Yes.
And did you say they were consistent with teeth and nail marks?
Yes.
Nails on a dog, oftentimes or most times, are horseshoe shaped, aren't they?
They're generally conical shape.
You don't think that nails on a dog in your studies have a horseshoe shape?
I think it depends on the grooming of the dog and if the nails were cut recently. But in general, they come to a point. They're at the end of the paw. They come to a point. And by the way, the paws can open and close. So the distance between the nails can vary depending on how that claw impacts the skin. So in many ways,
I'm sitting here trying to think how angels how angels' nails look when they haven't been clipped for a little while, because it would be different. I mean, it's definitely a different shape. For example, after she's been groomed and had her nails done and that sort of thing. I'm just trying to think whether or not I would class them as conical or not. There's definitely periods where there's horseshoe shapes, though.
they resemble the overall shape of canine teeth.
And so to get back to my question here, you're saying that this could have been caused by dog nails?
It's possible.
Do you know, or do you think that the teeth in a dog are different shapes and sizes?
Oh, yes. Depending on the tooth, there's different shapes and sizes. Absolutely.
When you testified the first time and you said that you thought it was teeth or nails, do you remember testifying a couple days later in front of a group of people and you again iterated that this could be teeth or claw marks? That was your testimony last year, teeth or claw marks, right?
I'm going to object to the characterization of that prior proceeding.
So just prior proceeding, folks, that's all we need.
Did you testify at that prior proceeding last summer that this could have been teeth or claw marks?
I would need to see the transcript.
May I approach?
Yes.
When you first testified on June 18th, doctor, you were asked questions trying to identify what you thought that wound was. And this is your June 18, 2024 testimony. On page 37, line 7, the questions begin. When you were asked what you thought they were. You can read any part you want, but line 7 might be a starting point.
Yes, I said that which are consistent with teeth marks. They also could be possibly consistent with nail marks.
But Doris, I'm just going to ask you to keep your voice up, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. That was your first testimony last year, yes?
Yes.
And then did you testify a couple days later and again repeated the same opinion, teeth or nail marks?
May I see it?
I'm asking if you remember.
Yes, I remember testifying.
Do you remember after you worked on your report and submitted your report,
Yes.
after your consultations, Do you remember changing that opinion regarding number one? Do you remember changing that opinion?
No.
Do you remember changing from either teeth or possibly claw marks to being very specific, claiming that it was definitely teeth marks?
No.
Are there different types of teeth in a dog?
Yes.
Okay. The pointy teeth, the big ones, those are called canines,
Correct.
and the smaller ones are incisors.
Correct.
There's 6 incisors in a healthy dog on the top and bottom between the canines.
Correct.
Okay. Did you, when you testified subsequently to the original proceedings, did you change your opinion from teeth or claw marks to specifically teeth, and even more specifically canines?
Do you have a transcript?
I do, but I'm going to ask you the question. Do you remember changing your testimony from teeth or nails to being very certain that it was canines, not just teeth, canines that caused that wound?
I became more certain, yes.
You had never said that the canines caused these wounds before you filed the report, ever, did you?
I may not have, that's true.
And so after you did the report, you shifted from teeth and nails to canines. Do you remember that?
I don't think it's a shift.
No one would ever refer to a dog's nails as canines, would they?
No, I don't think so.
That would be inaccurate, wouldn't it?
Yes,
That would be a mistaken use of the word.
I believe so.
When you testified December 2024, you didn't say nails could have caused this wound. You didn't say generally teeth. You said canines.
I believe that, and that's true. I believe that canine teeth caused that wound.
Did you have any new information about photographs that would help you change your opinion from teeth and nails to canines?
Well, I had been challenged. I had testified several times. I reviewed the case several times and challenged. And each time I reviewed the case, I became more certain that these were from canine teeth.
So,
and actually, there's other marks there, but these are from teeth.
You say more certain. You had never said canines before, ever, until that recent hearing. Isn't that true?
I said teeth.
Canines.
It doesn't matter. I said teeth.
Top-
Canines are some of the teeth.
Upper or lower canines?
Upper.
And if it's upper canines, you testified previously that the point of entry would be here at the bottom and the dog would pull this way. That's what you testified to. Yes?
No, I believe you misunderstood then. The point of entry is up there. The first initial point of contact is there. And the dog pulled this
No
way,
idea
or
if my
Mr.
mic's
O'Keefe
working or not.
pulled his arm the opposite way.
Dr. Russell, you don't recall that you said that the bigger circles are the point of entry, the dog pulled this way, and then I asked you, how could a dog pull this way when the arc is like this? The dog's mouth would have to be in backwards. Remember that conversation we had?
Objection, Your
We're
Honor.
going to allow it.
Do you remember that conversation? You said that the point of entry would be the bigger circle pulled this way, and then I questioned, how could a dog's arc look like this if the teeth went that way?
No, I don't recall that
You
at
remember
all.
that conversation
No.
we had? Okay. And so, inevitably, when you look at this part of the wound alone, have you expressed an opinion that you're unable on its own to be able to tell whether this was caused by a dog?
Which part of the wound?
Taking any of these alone, let's start with number one.
Oh, really?
Haven't you expressed an opinion that taking this alone, you would not be able to say that was from a dog bite?
That is
I'm shocked because my microphone started doing that crackly thing again, and I assumed that it disconnected my mic. Oh well, doesn't matter.
correct. In and of themselves, they're not that specific or characteristic. However, as a group, they are highly characteristic of a dog
So if
injury.
Mr. O'Keefe's arm only had this wound and nothing else, by virtue of what you're telling us, you would not be able to offer an opinion that this was consistent with a dog bite.
That very first wound
Yes.
up there, closest, I agree. Yes.
In fact, you've testified about this very issue before. If this was the only wound on Mr. O'Keefe, number two, you would not be able to say that the injury is consistent with a dog bite.
Correct.
I'm going to go through all of these just so we're clear. Same thing with number three. You've provided opinions on this before. If you look at this wound alone, in isolation, you would not be able to say that it came from a dog bite.
Correct.
Four,
Mhm.
same. Looking at the wound alone, you would not be able to say it came from a dog bite.
Correct.
Same for 5 and same for 6.
Correct.
Now, when you testified before your recent testimony, you never had that qualification. When you came into court, you were saying that when you looked at these wounds individually, you were saying that you could identify it as a dog bite.
I disagree with that characterization.
Number 2, what caused this wound, Dr. Russell?
Number 2, I believe that was dog bite or scratch, but mostly I believe dog bite. And because there's a punctate, little tiny pinpoint almost lesion there and there, which could represent bottom teeth.
Okay, so you're using words like could, and we're talking about a reasonable degree of medical certainty. So when you look at this wound here, you said that you are sure or not sure what caused this wound.
I'm saying that individually, that wound, that's correct. I'm not sure individually what that wound was caused by. However, again, as I mentioned earlier, the overall pattern of wounds is what I am convinced of.
I want to go through each of these wounds separately so we understand what you actually recognize with your methodology and what you don't. So looking at wound number 2, based on whatever methodology you've been using, are there any signs, indicators, objective criteria you can look at and tell us this is or is not a dog bite based on this methodology you have?
There are some characteristics that are suggestive of a dog bite or dog claw, including the fact that there are parallel lesions, and many of these, overall, by the way, parallel lesions are in the same general direction. So there are parallel lesions, and here they're associated with some punctate or point-like other abrasions right here. So they're consistent with being inflicted by a dog.
I appreciate you using some medical terms to describe this, but my question is more pointed. Is there anything about your methodology, something that stands out about these wounds, that you can say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that these are consistent with a dog either biting or scratching?
These wounds all by themselves, not to a medical degree of certainty, no.
You said on this first wound, you thought this was from the canines. Those are the big upper teeth is what you're claiming, right?
Yes.
And you're saying today, anyways, starts here at the bottom and goes up. Is that
No.
your position today?
That's not what I said. I said the
Okay.
exact opposite.
So it starts here and comes down.
Correct.
Okay. And these 2 scratches, they're linear, just like these are linear, aren't they?
Yes.
But you have a problem with these because if these are the canines, you see the spacing there?
Uh-huh.
This is nowhere close, is it?
I didn't say that these were caused by canines. And spacing also, there's reasons why their spacing could be different.
Well, we can talk about that in a second. Are you suggesting that these not exact, these 2 linear abrasions, just like 1 and 2, are you suggesting the canines caused these?
I don't know what caused those, which teeth caused those, or which nails caused those.
When you testified last year on June 18th, you said that this was either teeth or claws. Can you give us any development of your opinions, whether or not you think that is teeth or claws?
Excuse me? No, well, I couldn't hear because of the fan.
When you testified on June 18th, you said wound number 2, the top 2 linear abrasions, you believe were either teeth or claws. You've shared with us now you have improved your study and have new opinions. Do you have a clear opinion whether this is teeth or claws?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained, ask it differently.
Do you have an opinion whether this is teeth or claws or not something totally different than a dog?
I believe they are teeth or claws caused.
When you testified at trial and in that hearing that they were teeth or claws, you changed that opinion as well at the most recent hearings, didn't you?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the word of use that's been done before.
Mr. Brennan, word it differently.
Sorry?
Word it differently.
Okay. Did you testify at a more recent hearing that teeth made these, not teeth or claws, but teeth?
I may have, and I would like to see that.
May I
Can you
approach?
just hold 1 second? Would you please turn the fan off? Jerry, is it okay if we turn the fan off so we can hear better? Thank you very much, Officer DeWine.
May I approach?
Yes.
From your December hearing, page 100, line 5.
I mean, to be fair though, Brennan's haircut is consistent with being a dick. So,
When you were asked about that second wound in December, and I asked whether you changed your opinion from teeth or claws to just teeth, weren't you asked specifically about that on page 100?
I'm not going to fall asleep, Dazza.
Yes. But may I read it?
Sure, I'll read it with you.
Okay. I said, I'm not sure on the second set. So this is the set just above the elbow.
I'm not sure exactly what teeth made these. One of them could, one set of these could be canine, one part of this, and then adjacent in scissor tooth. But I'm not sure on the second set, so this is the set just above the elbow.
Yeah, I think the first part of that paragraph is talking about the first set
Yes.
up there close to the shoulder. And then the sentence, but I'm not sure on the second set. So this is the set that's just above the elbow. I said, I'm not sure.
And then, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
You done?
Oh. Actually, I didn't-
he's done a lot to try and discredit
what
her.
is this? However, what is interesting and certain is that there's an upper set.
I mean, look, he's done his best to discredit her throughout this part of the trial, and some of it, in my opinion, has been successful. Some of it, very much not so. I think that there was definitely some dirty tactics in there. I think he got very argumentative. I think she snapped back at him. But I do think that there's going to need to be some rehabilitation unless he's going to actually try and restructure this, because some of the things you said are pretty hurtful to the defense's case, in my personal opinion. I just have to wait and see. I don't know.
And a lower set. So this mark was an upper tooth. This is a lower tooth. What I was referring to is this mark here and that mark, and then this mark here and this mark here. So it appears that this is from upper and these are from lower. That's what I was referring to.
And so when you first described
See, the trouble is that
this
my
wound
gut tells me that that's
as
a dog
teeth
bite as well.
or
Or
claws,
as a dog
at the
attack.
most recent hearing, you had a certain opinion that this was teeth, didn't you?
Yes, I was leaning towards teeth. Correct.
Well, it didn't seem like you were leaning. You said these were from the upper teeth.
Yes.
You said it matter of factly, not with any qualification. Your claim at the last hearing is this was from teeth.
That's what I believe.
And today you're saying you don't know if these were teeth or claws.
Not with 100% certainty.
You didn't qualify 100% certainty. You were asked your opinion, Dr. Russell. You were asked, what do you think? And you didn't say we're not 100% certain.
To be fair, you said it was said to a reasonable degree of medical certainty. That's not the same as being 100% certain. Don't go twisting the words there.
Your claim, the first time you testified, teeth or claws. Recently, you said teeth, and now you're saying you're not sure.
No, I'm saying I believe that those marks are from teeth, but I'm not 100% certain.
Suffice to say, looking at wound 2 alone, you cannot say this was caused by a dog.
In and of itself, no.
Very rare in this trial.
What tooth do you think caused this wound?
I don't know.
Do you think this in any way could be caused by dog teeth if you're claiming that this is dog teeth? Do
Excuse me?
you think there's any way these two?
You know what I'd really like to juxtapose this with? Jackson or Alessi standing up, talking, pulling back one of the accident reconstructionist guys, putting the arm on the screen, and then holding up the little bits and pieces of the taillight and say, which injury do you think this piece caused? Which injury do you think this piece caused? Which injury do you think this piece caused?
Could be caused by dog teeth if you're saying that these two are caused by dog teeth.
Yes, could be, but I don't know which teeth, and I don't know the extent of the bite, how much impact there was, and how much pressure and how much contact there was between the teeth and the skin.
The canines are the longer teeth in a dog's mouth, aren't they?
They are.
And when a dog bites, it's very common for the canines to puncture, isn't it?
It's common if there's enough force, and it's common that you might have two canines if the strike is perpendicular to the skin. But if you have a tangential strike, a partial strike where only part of the teeth impact, you'll get different configurations.
Look at the spacing, Dr. Russell.
Something's going
Did you say
down.
strike or strike?
Strike with a K.
Look at the spacing, Dr. Russell.
Mhm.
A dog causing these wounds, the canines are not going to have.
Through a hoodie. We got to keep that in mind, don't we? Wasn't he wearing a hoodie? Or am I pulling shit out of air? Which, to be fair, did blue paint grease guy? No, he didn't wear a hoodie at the time, did he? God, I'm so brain fried. I'm missing out on I'm missing out on key facts in this case now. Shit.
Have such a dramatic distance between them because dog canines don't move, do they?
They don't, and I'm not claiming that these two parallel stripes in this case, or abrasions here, I'm not claiming that those two were caused by canines.
You think a dog is going to leave a wound with linear abrasions using its incisors as opposed to its canines? Is that your opinion?
It's possible if that's the only part of the mouth or the jaw that actually touched the skin, if it didn't go back as far as the canines.
Did you ever look at the underside of Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
I did.
Posterior side?
Excuse me. Pictures, yes.
Yeah. And when you looked at the photographs of the posterior side of Mr. O'Keefe's arm, did you find anything conspicuously absent from underneath his arm?
Well, first of all, let me clarify. Part of this is the posterior aspect of the arm. So are you asking me, did I look at the underside of the arm, the fleshy part
That's
of the
exactly
arm?
what I'm asking. It's a question I've asked before. When you look at the other side of Mr. O'Keefe's arm, did you notice anything
don't be rude, you
conspicuously
dickhead.
absent?
Yes, there was an absence of wounds.
When a dog bites, I don't care if it's a law enforcement dog or a domestic dog, you know it's like a lever in a dog's mouth, isn't it?
No. If a dog bites, because of the way that the jaw works, you can absolutely have injuries from the top of the jaw, but not the bottom. The fuck's he on about?
It can be if both jaws strike the skin. However, there are many times when only the upper jaw strikes the skin.
The lower jaw is a lever, locks, and that's part of the clamping and pulling process of a dog, whether it's a law enforcement dog or a domestic dog. You know that, don't you?
No, not necessarily.
I know that they are attached.
Your claim is that there's many, many different dog bites on Mr. O'Keefe's arm. Are you suggesting, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that these are a number of different dog strikes, and coincidentally, every single one of them lacks any wound to the underside of his arm?
Yes.
Your claim is that a dog penetrated the sweater on the top, but the lower jaw did not leave any wounds?
I'm claiming that that's not what I'm claiming. No. As I mentioned earlier, these could be from lower jaw. Those right there.
You're saying could be.
Could be.
That's speculation. We're asking you for your medical opinions. Your medical opinions. Do you have any evidence that the dog's lower jaw, you said maybe upper, maybe, that the lower jaw, even just once in this whole event, penetrated Mr. O'Keefe's skin?
No, nothing penetrated the skin. There was no actual penetration of the skin. These are abrasions. But I believe that these small marks right here, punctate marks, may be the result of lower jaw impact.
Rather than deal in speculation and maybes, can you tell us to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether or not this was caused by a tooth?
Yes, Your Honor.
We're going to strike the first part. Why don't you ask the other part?
Can you tell us to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether this superficial abrasion, can you put that back up, please, was caused by a dog?
In and of itself, that part only, no.
Can you tell us anywhere on Mr. O'Keefe's arm to a reasonable degree of medical certainty where the lower jaw impacted Mr. O'Keefe to leave even a scratch?
Not with a reasonable degree of medical certainty on individual wounds.
And not just individual wounds, I'm talking specifically the lower jaw. Can you point to one wound, one abrasion on that arm where you can say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty the lower jaw caused any of those abrasions?
I believe there are several areas where there's impact from the lower jaw. However, I cannot say with reasonable degree of medical certainty that part only.
Let's look at number 3 to move along. When you first talked about these wounds, again, is it fair to say that you described that it could have either been teeth or claw?
I'd have to see it.
Okay, I'll bring it to you. You don't remember that testimony?
He's shooting himself in the foot. He's trying to discredit her by saying, oh, your opinion's changed, it was influenced by the defense. But he keeps putting the words tooth and claw in the jury's brain. Because the more that they look at that photo, and the more he says the words teeth and claws, they're going to look at that and go, maybe that could have been caused by either tooth or claws. Maybe it doesn't matter so much if it's an actual dog bite. Maybe, just maybe, it actually could have been something that happened from a dog. I think he's screwing himself over here.
I remember, again, I've been here many times, so I want to be
Well, you have the opinion today. I'm getting the transcript for you, Dr. Russell.
Thank you.
You have the opinion today that that those were either teeth or claws.
Yes.
What's your opinion today?
Well, I think that most likely they are from teeth marks.
Well, rather than most likely, we deal with reasonable degree of medical certainty. So, a reasonable degree of medical certainty. Can you give us an opinion regarding the cause?
My opinion is that to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that was caused by a dog, either by its teeth or its claws, which is really the ultimate question. Was a dog involved?
Cause of those marks.
Objection, Your Honor.
So I'll strike the comment.
Can you tell us to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these wounds were caused by teeth or claws?
Individually, no.
Oh, look, haven't been bitten by a German Shepherd that I mean, he was a good boy.
Did you ever
Occasionally
change your
get
mind
a little bit rough and rambunctious.
About
But
the
having been
source
bit by a German Shepherd myself,
these
I can
abrasions?
say that I'm fairly confident that he
Can
was
you
bit
be
by a
more
dog.
specific?
Did you ever claim that any of these abrasions were from upper or lower teeth?
I don't recall changing my mind.
You don't recall if you've ever said that? Let's separate these bottom wounds. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these were caused by teeth or claws?
I have an opinion.
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
No.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these were caused by either dog teeth or dog claws?
I have an opinion.
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Individually, no.
As a whole, yes.
The one near
She's
the
leaving
wrist,
questions
you
on the
testified
table.
yesterday,
She's
is
trying to be
lined in
careful
what you
about
believe to be an
working.
arc, correct?
Yes, they have a general overall appearance of an arc.
If there's an arc in the two linear abrasions on the outside borders, wouldn't these necessarily have to be the outside borders from canine teeth?
Not necessarily.
They're longer than the middle ones, aren't they?
The abrasions are, but doesn't mean the teeth are.
If this was an arc, like you claimed, you think different teeth other than the canines could have caused the outside scratches?
It's possible.
And you do note the distance between the top and bottom of those wounds compared to the distance in number 2 and the distance in number 1.
I see the difference, yes.
And you have to concede, Dr. Russell, that the same set of teeth, the same canines, could not reasonably have caused this wound, and this wound, given the distance between the inside and outside.
First of all, I'm not certain that these are all canines, as I mentioned earlier. Secondly, you have to take into account that skin is elastic. It bends. It depresses. So you could have two prongs, for instance, of a pitchfork, for instance, just as an example, impact the skin in different places, and the measurement between the two can be slightly different depending on the elasticity of the skin and the underlying structures.
This is not a slight difference, Dr. Russell, is it? The distances-
Again,
Objection, Your Honor.
So there was a question to that, so I'm going to let that in.
Again, Dr. Russell, the distance here, it's not insignificant, is it?
Mr. Brennan, I already mentioned that I did not think that these were caused by two canine teeth.
And the distance between these two, have you measured them?
I approximated them, yes.
What
And
did you come up with?
visually, and I can see that there's a difference.
What was your measurement for this one?
I think about 4 centimeters, and this was a little bit more.
Did you note that in the report? Did you
No, I
actually
did not.
measure them, Did you actually take out a ruler, measure them, and document them as you study these wounds? Did you go through that process during your methodology?
No, because this is an image, and there's no scale in this image as to how far away different points are. So my own measurement would not be accurate because there's no scale in the picture.
Why did you go through the process of measuring them if you're now saying that it's inaccurate after I asked you if you memorialized it? Why would you even do it if you're now saying it was inaccurate?
It was an approximate
Take it into account.
approximate measurement in my mind.
In your mind?
Yeah.
Okay, but you never put it on a piece of paper, a report, notes?
That's correct.
Why would you even go through the process if you're looking at it and your explanation is, it's only a photo, I wouldn't be able?
I don't know, Hank. Why would you bother going to law school if you weren't going to be a half-decent lawyer?
to tell? Why would you even try to?
I think probably everybody in this room has already done the same thing.
And if anybody in this room did the same thing, it would be quite obvious, Doctor, that the gaps between 1, 2, and 5 are dramatically different from each other, aren't they?
They are. However, I'm not saying the same exact teeth caused those marks.
When you testified yesterday, you used the term differential diagnosis. I want to ask you a lot of questions about differential diagnosis. Do you remember using that term?
Yes.
And differential diagnosis was really just a way for you to try to get your opinion to the jury that these injuries were not consistent with a car accident. That's what a fancy way of doing it is, right?
No, it was a method I used.
Objection.
Differential diagnosis, you're claiming that you can say this is not from a car accident or a car collision. That's what you're trying to say, aren't you?
That was the result of my differential diagnosis and my pattern recognition
So if you're-
methodologies.
if you're going to exclude a cause of the injury, in this case, a collision, you have to know a little bit about collisions, don't you?
Yes, I don't know how to answer that.
Well, try.
Can you be more specific?
If you're going to say that these superficial abrasions could not have been caused by a car collision, you kind of have to understand a little bit about the mechanics of a car collision, don't you?
Actually, I disagree.
Not
However,
really. Yeah, exactly. If you've seen, I don't know, thousands of car accidents as a doctor, you can probably use pattern recognition without knowing the mechanics of a car accident. You don't have to be an accident reconstructionist. Hell, you don't even need to be a mechanic. We're talking about the injuries. Fucking hell.
I've treated thousands of victims of motor vehicle accidents and have seen the wound patterns that they come into the emergency room with. And
Oh, it's almost as if
and
I
that
knew what I was
forms a
talking about.
basis for me.
Do you really
Quinn.
think?
I'm sorry, she's.
Did you finish that answer, Doctor?
No.
Did I cut you off?
I believe so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, and the thousands of victims of motor vehicle accidents, I've looked at their wounds, I've treated their wounds, cleaned their wounds, touched their wounds, and that is what I use as a basis, part of my basis to determine that these were not caused or not consistent with a motor vehicle accident.
When you first gave that opinion that it wasn't consistent with a motor vehicle accident, it's fair to say you didn't have a lot of information at that time when you first came in and said that, correct?
Specific to this case?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't have a lot of information, that's correct.
Okay. And so in order to rule out a collision causing these wounds, let me ask you, are you an accident reconstruction expert?
Reconstruction? No.
Did you ever go to any account?
And see, and this is where he's gonna give me the shits, because specifically, like I just said, you don't need to be an accident reconstructionist to recognize things that have been in front of your eyes every single day. For example, if you look at a tree, you look at thousands of trees. You don't have to be an arborist to know that the leaves are green and to potentially identify which breed of tree. What am I saying here? What am I trying to say here? Doesn't matter.
Academy for training to receive any type of degree or certificates in car collisions?
Actually, I did receive a certificate in hit and run accident investigation from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council when I was a police officer.
Do you agree that what training you did have was rudimentary?
It probably was, yes.
Well, not probably. You've used that word before. Wouldn't you say that any training you have had has been rudimentary?
In terms of accident
Yes.
investigation, yes.
Have you ever testified as an expert anywhere in accident reconstruction?
No.
Do you know what ACTAR is?
ACTAR?
Yes.
No.
It's a certification group for collision specialists, accident reconstructionists. Is it fair to say that you're not ACTAR qualified?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Are you ACTAR qualified?
No, and I don't know any physicians that are.
Have you ever gone to a scene of a car collision and done an investigation and written a report and reached a conclusion
Random
about
Jaguar
the
just left
cause
ladies
of the
left
car
there.
collision and the injuries that were related to that car collision?
No, that's outside my scope.
It's beyond your expertise.
beyond the expertise of a physician, yes.
But yet, yesterday, you offered the jury your opinion that these wounds were not consistent with a car collision. Did you offer that opinion yesterday?
Wounds
Yes, and she's
are
entitled to.
in my area of expertise. So yes, I am very comfortable talking about wounds from a variety of sources, including motor vehicle accidents.
I'm sorry, I didn't want the siren to interrupt you.
Okay. Yeah, wounds are definitely within my area of expertise.
When you considered your opinion to this jury that this was not caused by a car collision, do you know what type of vehicle is in question?
Yes.
Have you ever studied the vehicle to look at the make, model, the height of different things like the bumper, perhaps the taillight? Have you ever studied that in this case?
I'm aware of some of those factors.
Have you
Yes.
studied that before you gave this opinion? Yes. Did you go and actually look at the photos, do any measurements before you came up with this opinion?
Not before I came up with the opinion, no.
Did you ever look at the damage to the rear taillight of the defendant's vehicle and see if it was in similar or the same height of Mr. O'Keefe if he was standing up? Did you ever do that?
I have looked at
And
photographs.
when you looked at the photos, did you see that a 6'1" man like Mr. O'Keefe, if he stood, his elbow would be the exact height of Miss Reed's broken taillight? Did you notice that?
I noticed that there was a similar, that the height would be similar. The height of the elbow and the taillight, yes.
Did you look at photographs of Miss Reed's broken taillight and see if the way the break was corresponded closely or directly to the same height as Mr. O'Keefe's elbow and forearm?
I did.
I'll give another.
And did you see that it matched up height-wise perfectly?
Close, yes.
You have really no, respectfully, comprehension about the details of the car collision in this case, do you?
I have some understanding of the allegations of a possible collision.
Do you know how slowly or fastly Miss Reed's Lexus was traveling on January 29, 2022 at about 12:32 a.m., right around the time that you think these wounds happened?
I have some knowledge of the alleged speed at the time of the alleged collision.
Do you have any knowledge about the surroundings, the outside, whether the ground was soft or frozen?
I understand that there was snow on the ground.
How much snow do you understand was on the ground when Mr. O'Keefe's body first landed on that ground?
Several inches.
Where did you get the information that there were several inches of snow on the ground when Mr. O'Keefe landed?
You asked me when?
Where did you get that information from?
A report that I read.
Have you ever seen the videos or the reports that when Mr. O'Keefe was moved from the ground, there was grass and dirt under him?
Yes, I saw a picture.
Not 2 inches of snow. The ground, the cold, hard ground. Did you see anything that said that?
Yes, I saw an area of grass
Have you
in
ever
the
looked
picture.
Have you ever looked at Mr.
White
O'Keefe's
House
pants to
side,
see if there was any dirt or grass stains on the back of them?
I've seen pictures.
Did you realize when you were forming your opinions about the source or the genesis or the cause of these abrasions, did you look at his pants and study whether or not he landed on snow or landed on the hard ground?
I did not see any evidence of grass on the pants.
Did you ever actually look at
I
the
don't
pants?
know if I looked at the pants.
So when you
to tell
say
you
you
the
didn't
truth.
see any evidence, are you saying you didn't look or you looked and you didn't see anything?
I looked at pictures of the clothing that was available at the hospital.
Did you look at anything about the pant photographs, the actual pants themselves? Did you look at them?
I looked at the pictures that were available at the hospital of his clothing that was on the floor.
Were part of the photographs that were available for your review and your conclusions of differential diagnosis, was part of that evidence photographs of the back of his pants?
I don't recall.
If you're going to make an opinion about something outside your expertise, that this was not consistent with a collision, wouldn't you want to see
Here we go.
as much information as
So
possible?
let's, we'll come to sidebar's turn.
All right, and I think that is where we will call it a day. Oh, because I've still got stuff that I got to do. Oh, wrong one. Let's go with that. All right, people. So that was what? Partway through the half day on Wednesday. Thursday, there's no trial. So tomorrow morning, for my drive to work, I'll finish this off. Friday drive home, I'll have to have some videos lined up for us to give commentary on. And then some point over the weekend, when it'll be, I'll have to go over the Friday testimony. Oh wait, no, I won't, because I got. Oh no, because Monday's a public holiday for me. Shit! Wow, this week is going to be majorly over it. Watch out for the brown thing with leaves on it. I'm no dendrologist, so I couldn't say it's a tree. Well, Dazzy, you're so used to playing with your wood, I'm sure you'd be fine with identifying it. So, but anyway, peeps, thank you to the 124 of you watching across various platforms. Make sure you hit the like, maybe reshare, sub, whatever else you want to do. But make sure you don't miss tomorrow's stream, because I'll have some videos lined up for us that are not Karen Reed related that we can have a little bit of fun with. So, as always, people, please remember, you are not a piece of shit. You have value and do contribute to society, especially for being here and for watching this shit show with me. But as always, people, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Cheers, peeps.
And again, on your way out, please do me the favor of hit the like and subscribe button if you're so inclined. It costs nothing. It's absolutely free, and we'll be friends forever. Bye now.
Unfortunately, some members of the media
use their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.